Welcome back to UK Political Insight, and if you thought your morning cuppa was dramatic, wait until you hear what just went down on Good Morning Britain. Picture this. Richard Madeley, the man who once confused a pasty for a pie on live television, finds himself in the middle of a budget brawl so heated that even the studio lights started sweating. A viral bricklayer who voted Labour is now getting tea invites from Kemi. A political commentator is having an absolute meltdown, and somewhere in Westminster, Rachel Reeves is probably stress-eating a spreadsheet. Buckle up, because this is the kind of chaos that makes British politics look like a particularly aggressive episode of Jeremy Kyle. But before we proceed, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more updates on this channel. Thank you. So here's the setup. Don Daniels, a self-employed bricklayer who went viral for calling unemployed Brits lazy and accusing them of milking the benefit system, rocks up to Good Morning Britain looking like he's ready to cement some opinions. And cement them he did. This bloke voted Labour in the last election, probably thinking he was backing a party that would keep taxes lower than Rishi Sunak's approval ratings. Spoiler alert, that didn't exactly go to plan. Don's now claiming he feels betrayed, lied to, and generally fed up with the whole Labour experiment. Classic British story, really. Vote for change, get annoyed, threaten to vote for the other lot. It's like switching from Tesco to Sainsbury's because they ran out of your favourite biscuits, only to realise Sainsbury's is also out of biscuits, and now everything costs more. During the interview, Susanna Reid, bless her, tries to dig into what exactly set Don off. Was it the budget? Was it the broken promises? Was it the sheer audacity of politicians pretending they know what ordinary people want? And Don doesn't hold back. He says he voted Labour because they promised not to raise taxes. Fair enough. Most of us vote based on promises that sound good at the time, like believing your mate he says he'll pay you back next week. But then Rachel Reeves whips out a budget that raises taxes faster than you can say national insurance hike. And suddenly, Don's feeling like he's been sold a dodgy extension by a cowboy builder. The irony is absolutely chef's kiss. Now, Don reckons people in Britain are lazy. Not all people, but a section of society that's figured out they can sit at home, claim benefits, and still have a better quality of life than grafting 40 hours a week. And look, whether you agree with him or not, he's tapped into something that a lot of people are quietly thinking but are too scared to say out loud because they don't want to get cancelled on Twitter. The benefit system is a mess. Everyone knows it. Some people genuinely need support and they deserve it, but there's also a chunk of people who've worked out how to game the system like it's a particularly lucrative episode of Deal or No Deal. Don's not wrong to point that out, even if his delivery is about as subtle as a brick through a window, which, given his profession, feels oddly appropriate. But here's where it gets spicy. Don reveals he's been invited to meet Kemi. Yes, you heard that right. The Conservative leader, currently trying to rebuild her party from the ashes of 14 years of chaos, saw Don's viral video and thought, right, this is the bloke we need. It's like watching someone dump their ex and immediately start flirting with their ex's worst enemy. Susanna Reid, ever the professional journalist, asks if Kemi can win him back to the Tory side. And Don, bless him, admits he likes some of her policies. Not all of them, mind you, but enough to at least sit down for a chat. It's the equivalent of saying, I'm not interested, but I'll hear you out over coffee. Classic British politeness mixed with a healthy dose of, let's see what's in it for me. Enter Susie Stride, political commentator and the human embodiment of a strongly worded letter. Susie is absolutely fuming that Don would even consider meeting with Kemi. She's got that energy of someone who's just found out their mate is considering getting back with their terrible ex, and she's not having it. Susie launches into a passionate defense of Labour, pointing out that the Tories were in power for 14 years and left the country in an absolute state. Unemployment? Tory legacy. Economic mess? Tory legacy. The fact that your local GP surgery is harder to get into than a Glastonbury ticket? Tory legacy. And to be fair to Susie, she's got a point. 14 years is a long time. That's longer than most people's mortgage terms. You can't just hand over a country that's been run like a dodgy Wetherspoons and expect the next lot to fix it overnight. But Don's not having it. He keeps interrupting, which, let's be honest, is peak Good Morning Britain. This is what we tune in for. Not the measured debate, not the polite discourse. We want the drama, the interruptions, the moment when Richard Madeley has to step in like a weary referee at a school football match. Don't keeps hammering home the point that Labour lied. They promised no tax rises and then they raised taxes. Simple as that. And for someone like Don, who works hard, pays his taxes, and probably has to deal with clients who complain about the cost of everything, that broken promise stings. It's not just about the money, it's about trust. And once that's gone, it's harder to rebuild than a crumbling Victorian terrace. Susie, meanwhile, is spiralling. She brings up the Future Jobs Fund, the youth inclusion programs, all these schemes the Tories scrapped when they came into power. She's furious that 1 million young people are unemployed, and she's absolutely right to be angry about that. Youth unemployment is a disaster. These are kids who should be starting careers, learning skills, building their futures, and instead they're stuck in a system that's failed them. But here's the problem with Susie's argument. Don doesn't care about what the Tories did a decade ago. He cares about what Labour's doing right now. And right now, Labour looks like they've taken the country's credit card on a shopping spree and left the rest of us to pay the bill. It's not that Don's forgotten about the Tories, it's that he's fed up with Labour's excuses. The exchange gets more heated. Don declares that nobody's ever going to vote for Labour again. Bold claim, Don. Very bold. He says they're finished, done, toast. And while that's probably a bit of an exaggeration, you can't deny that Labour's honeymoon period ended faster than a Love Island relationship. They came into power with hope, optimism, and a mandate to change things, and now they're sitting on approval ratings that would make Liz Truss blush. Susie accuses Don of having short-term memory loss, which is a bit rich considering politicians on all sides seem to have the collective memory of a goldfish. Remember when Boris said he'd get Brexit done? Remember when Keir said he wouldn't raise taxes? Pepperidge Farm remembers, and so does the British public. Richard Madeley, bless him, tries to keep the peace, but this isn't a debate you can control with a gentle nudge and a charming smile. This is two people who are fundamentally fed up with the state of British politics, and they're taking it out on each other because they can't take it out on the people actually responsible. It's like watching a couple argue about whose turn it is to do the dishes when the real problem is that the kitchen is on fire. Eventually, Richard has to cut Susie off because they've run out of time, which is probably for the best, because if they'd gone any longer, someone would have thrown a chair. And just when you think the interview's over, Susanna Reid drops a cheeky little question. She asked Don if he's thinking of standing for Parliament himself, because apparently, in modern British politics, being viral and having opinions is basically the only qualification you need. Don, ever the joker, asks how much they're paying. Classic. But honestly, would anyone be surprised if Don Daniels ended up in Westminster? We've seen stranger things. We had a Prime Minister who forgot to bring an umbrella to a resignation speech. We had another one who lasted less time than a lettuce. At this point, a bricklayer who speaks his mind might actually be an upgrade. So, what's the takeaway from all this chaos? Well, it's that British voters are tired. Tired of broken promises, tired of being told things will get better when they clearly won't, and tired of being caught in the crossfire of political point scoring. Don Daniels represents a growing chunk of the electorate who feel abandoned by both major parties. He voted Labour hoping for change, and instead he got tax rises and disappointment. Now he's flirting with the Tories, not because he loves them, but because he's got nowhere else to go. It's like being stuck between two terrible options on a menu and just hoping the chips are decent. And Susie, she's fighting for a party that's struggling to find its identity. Labour's in power, but they don't seem to know what to do with it. They're stuck between trying to fix the mess they inherited and trying to keep their own supporters happy, and they're failing at both. Susie's anger is valid, but it's not going to win people like Don back. You can't guilt someone into supporting a party. You can't shame them for considering other options. You have to actually deliver on your promises, and right now, Labour's delivery service looks about as reliable as Hermes on a bank holiday. The budget row that exploded on Good Morning Britain is just a symptom of a much bigger problem. British politics is broken, and people are angry. They're angry at the Tories for leaving the country in chaos, they're angry at Labour for not fixing it fast enough, they're angry at the system that keeps letting them down. And until someone, anyone, steps up and actually starts delivering real change instead of sound bites and spin, we're going to keep seeing these explosive debates. Because at the end of the day, people like Don just want to work hard, pay their taxes, and feel like it's all worth something. And right now, it doesn't. If you've made it this far, massive respect. Drop a comment and let me know what you think. Is Don right to consider meeting Kemi? Is Susie right to defend Labour? Or are they both missing the point entirely? And while you're at it, hit that subscribe button because we're posting multiple videos a day and you don't want to miss the next round of political chaos. Trust me, with the way things are going, there's always something kicking off. Until next time, this has been UK Political Insight, reminding you that British politics is messier than a Friday night in Wetherspoons and somehow just as entertaining.